I'm here to talk about, I'm the least qualified person you'll hear from today. I didn't know I was a civic imaginer or a world builder until Sam told me I was. And as we say back home, and now I is one. Okay, so this is, professionally speaking for me, the saddest day of my professional career. This was the okay, so this was the Big Sandy coal-fired electrical generation plant in Louisa, Kentucky, just down the river from where I live on the Big Sandy. And every year we mined 1 million tons of coal from our valley. We sent it down to Louisa, we burned it, we generated electricity, and we powered our valley. We were totally self-contained since the time Kentucky was electrified. We've never been parts of rural electric cooperatives or anything like that in our area. We've always generated our own electricity, really almost since Louisville and Lexington had electricity. We in Pikeville have had electricity. And in the Big Sandy, a lot of it. And this occurred later on than most of the things in my talk today. So it's not it's not the first thing that occurred, but it symbolizes the disruption very well, very graphically, what occurred. So we made our own electricity. We had the cheapest electricity of the state, and now we import our electricity, and we have the highest electricity rates in the state. So I always like to say, life is what happens while you make other plans. I'm a mining engineer by education. I married a civil engineer. Our daughter spoke to you yesterday. Fortunately, she looks like her mom. And we always like to say, we married each other to keep two normal people from being miserable. And so we're a couple of engineering nerds. One year on vacation, I took Elin and her mom, and we toured the Dade County landfill because they had an open house that day. So we're fun to party with. I think you guys would really enjoy, a trip with us. But anyway, so if you look at Appalachia in this, it's defined differently by different groups. It's the most misunderstood part of our country. If you look at the farthest one, it actually butts up against Warren County. And that's how the Appalachian Regional Commission defines it. If you look at how I learned it at UK in geology, in the geology class, it's the darker green. area, that's Appalachia. And if you ask me where I'm from, I'm in the black area. I'm from where Dub's from. We're from the same coal field. He's in Virginia, I'm in Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia. It's all right in the heart of Central Appalachia. It was all part of Virginia in the beginning. We're all Virginians, basically. And then Kentucky was the West. So if you look at the graph on the right, and I promise I won't bore you with another graph, but an engineer has to have a graph in every talk. It's a law, really, and I don't want to go to jail. The judge is here. And so if you look, you see that steep decline. That is disruption. So when I say life is what happens while you make other plans, this is what occurs. If you imagine Bowling Green and all this economic development going on around here, and in 1 year, you shut down 80% of the factories, and they go away and they raise them to the ground and they plant grass, and it's gone. That's what we had in Central Appalachia. That's why Barack Obama's not a real popular guy there, okay? Is because just transitions are important. And we endured an unjust transition. And it had implications I cannot enumerate. But it happened. Life happens. We make other plans. So we did out of necessity take an action, because all these high-skilled people were unemployed. And they were doing these things. They were going down really negative paths of self-destructive behaviors. They were leaving, coming to places like Bowling Green or Georgetown, places like that, where there was industrial type jobs. But there were also very high-tech jobs, high-tech workers. So we approached Justin, and he actually trained 10. We advertised in the local radio. We had 950 applications for 10 jobs paying $15 an hour in 3 days. And so we chose 10. We start out. We're not obviously tech people. I can't work the clicker, you know. But Justin was, Peyton was. We recruited Peyton. And we trained these guys and one gal that were coal industry people, and made software developers out of them. And they've been very successful at it. We wanted to replace the jobs with high-paying jobs equivalent to our mining jobs. And our mining jobs paid 3 times the median income compared to the other jobs in our area. So we could have had 300 people there and had a big ribbon cutting, but there would have been $12 an hour jobs, $15 an hour jobs, and we wanted these guys to make 6 figures. You know, mining jobs pay well. And so we wanted those kind of jobs, and so we tried that. We did that in 9 years. That was 9 years ago. We didn't know what we were doing. It got a lot of attention. But after I met Sam Ford, who cold called me one day because her daughter Elin went to Western, I got a call from someone, Peyton Hollers. I just happened to be in the building that day, which, to make Buddy's point, the building we chose is an old Coca-Cola bottling plant. It just happened to be located with the fiber out front that goes to our university and our hospital. Fiber is important. Connectivity is essential to 21st century work. So we buy this building, we fix it up, we move these folks in there, we start off training. People think we're a school. We're not. We're a business, hired a workforce that was untrained. And so Sam calls one day, and I think, my first job, I'm a dad. Uh-oh, Elin's in trouble. No, Sam called about something else. And so we end up making a call, and he invites me out. After I've learned Sam, he teaches me a few words, one of them being reimagination. So basically at BitSource, we reimagined the workforce. And we've reskilled them, and all these, really, we've had very good success with, they may not all still be at BitSource, but they're all still in technology, and most of them have stayed in the mountains. So we felt like that effort, from that perspective, was very successful. So Sam invites me down here, and I think Peyton came with me, to one of these, a civic imagination event in 2017. And so what you're doing here today can have long-term implications. The people you'll meet, the connections you'll make, and the things you'll learn from each other are important. And so, anyway, there's Peyton with long hair, and I'm just as good looking as ever over on the other side. So Sam takes us, and we do a West Kentucky reimagination tour. Over, let's see, one of them, we go to the Rosine Barn. We go to meet his granddad over here on the right, who will come to find out Sam's grandfather and the guy that sells us our diesel fuel at our mine are next door neighbors. Now, we're in Pike County, he's in Ohio County, but there's a lot of connections between the East and the West when you start looking at it. A lot of similarities. So from there, we take a reimagination tour to Eastern Kentucky. We call it the Appalachian Reimagination Tour. It's about 3 days in both ways. And folks from academia, industry, and some folks from MIT, Carnegie Mellon. It's actually where I first met the first folks from MIT, from Carnegie Mellon, high school educators. There were just a lot of some government folks, just people I thought, what I learned later, all these things we're doing from just doing. Heuristic learning by doing is really the best way to learn. And we're just trying things and exploring each other's willingness to explore. And so here we are on a surface mine, anyway, we're just visiting all these different places. These are some photographs taken at BitSource. And so this guy down here standing here beside me, he's from MIT. I think Peyton just built him a website last week. So, and we just built a project here for Miss Coots. And so anyway, a lot of people we met, we've worked with. Anyway, just more of this. Then we go, they invite us, the people from the Northeast invite us up. So we go explore Carnegie Mellon, we go explore MIT. We start meeting people. Because one of the things that causes and helps grow poverty or keeps people in poverty is the lack of social capital. We invest huge sums in these places, but we don't have the connections that really get foundational change made. So one of the things we've done intentionally at BitSource is travel. Oh gosh, we've been everywhere anybody would meet with us, we've gone. Justin, Peyton, and I and Lynn went to Google. We spent a week out at Google. We had dinner with the Waltons from Walmart. I mean, I've been to the White House. It's crazy the places we've gone just to meet people and learn and form relationships. And like I say, as Buddy says, share the good and the bad and be honest. As Terrence says, people smell bullshit. Okay? And so just try to be brutally honest. Here's what we're trying to do. And from that, I got invited up to present at the MIT Future of Work Symposium in 2017. And this is Maria Zuber. She's the chairman. She was here in Bowling Green 2 weeks ago. One of those people we met along this journey. And she is on the White House yeah, for both Trump and Biden. And she runs CCEL, which is the largest lab at MIT where all the real innovative things that you see happen. And so she happens to be from coal country. First generation college student, both grandfathers died of black lung from Pennsylvania. Obviously, we made a connection. And so this event is 2 days, and it's the lead developer for AI for Facebook. It's the president. They had 2 of these talks, fireside talks. I was on the second day. President of Google was the first day. So you talk about a tuxedo and a pair of brown shoes. I was the brown shoes, okay? You talk about someone who's really out of their element. You're around all these people that are really technologists, and you're not. But anyway, I did. I just went. I tried to be who I was, and so it led to that. And from that, those 2 trips, the trip that earlier that some folks from, I didn't go on that trip, and then myself going, we ended up, Kentucky got invited to participate in the Sloan School's Regional Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program, where we learned the techniques for how you accelerate the ecosystem. Much of what Buddy just told you, although he was doing it before we learned this, is exactly how you do it. He only allowed people in here that did national, international business. That's called an innovation-driven enterprise. Those are words I've learned, which means you leverage technology to access external markets, totally relevant to people working in Pikeville, Kentucky, where it's 2 hours, north, south, east, or west to the interstate. 4.5 hours for me to drive here this morning. So, but yet we're there working right now for a company headquartered in San Diego, a company headquartered in Germany, and we had a conversation this week with a company from Hong Kong. So we're working locally and globally. And so we've taken on the role. As we got there, we learned that digital literacy was low. So we got involved in education. And we've helped develop and bring along some of Emmy's work. And so we've interacted at lots of levels just around this openness and willingness to ask for help. So Kentucky was chosen. We did this 2-year program with 8 other countries. Kentucky was the first domestic cohort to be here. To be in this program from the United States. It's always just been countries. Kentucky got to go, be a part of this. And we formed some really strong relationships with the Sloan School there and their School of Entrepreneurism. And as a result of that, here in Bowling Green, in this building, we had our kickoff event for Accelerate Kentucky. And Accelerate Kentucky is the backbone organization built out of the learnings that we gained from this 2-year program. We just were in Boston 2 weeks ago for a 10-year reunion of the entire program, where we got to learn about what they've learned by doing this for 10 years in over 60 countries. And we learned a lot, and there's a lot in common between Nova Scotia and Kentucky, Western Australia and Kentucky, Nigeria and Kentucky. We have a lot of Northern Ireland, places like that, and Kentucky's ecosystem have a lot of similarities and things we can do. And so we had our kickoff event. This is Phil Budden. He was one of our lecturers that taught us for 2 years as a former ambassador for the British government, and a hail fellow well met. And so as a result of all these learnings, we've made pivots back to Sam's. As he described to me what I am, he said, "You are a practitioner of civic imagination." And so I never thought of myself that. I won't after I leave here, but for the purposes of this talk, I guess I am. So I've been on a board in Eastern Kentucky for years of a thing called CEDAR, which stood for Coal Education, Development, and Resources. And we taught about coal and the resource of coal to students. Very effective K through 12 program. And we pivoted that to focusing on what the future of work looks like, and now we're focused on innovation, economic development. And that was really Accelerate Kentucky's first move, was to pivot our educational efforts in K-12 in Eastern Kentucky. And then another thing we've done is we've worked on coal camps. So if you come to Eastern Kentucky, the towns were built by private investment. If you go to Mars and you look up there right now, there are rovers up there mapping the resources. Where is the ice the closest to the surface? And that's where the towns will be. So when you go to Eastern Kentucky, the towns are where the coal seam was the closest to the surface. They don't make sense where they are, but they were built there. The towns that will be built on Mars will be built by Google and Apple, Amazon, these companies. These towns were built by Consolidation Coal Company investors from the Northeast. Same people that's money that'll build things on Mars built the towns in Appalachia. But they've lost their purpose. They were disrupted. They mostly are places with bad outcomes now. Dub and I both come from these places, okay? But in Wayland, which is one little town, it was the largest town in Floyd County, was about 3,500 in its heyday, now about 450, was in the great flood of last year. Flood waters were 7 feet higher than it ever been historically. But it's the little town that could. And it hosts the first, just like the Rosine Barn, one of the commonalities we found, the Rosine Barn in Ohio County. We have where the first Mr. Basketball played in a basketball state. And we restored that gym. We're repurposing the town to be a intergenerational wellness center, and how we get the positive outcomes of building community, which is what Doug was talking about. And so anyway, if we think back about reimagination, and if you perceive me to be a practitioner, and when I stand before you, I represent the efforts of a lot of people. I kind of speak sometimes more than the rest of them, but with a lot of people, and so a lot of them in this room, that work to make our place better and our state better. Because even in Bowling Green, what happens in Pikeville and Eastern Kentucky is important. As you try to recruit resources, if our end of the state's dragging down the averages, it looks bad to people that don't know much about us. So we have to all rise together. And we think we're working on a trajectory that'll lead us in that way. And so anyway, so I want to finish with this. This town was, as you see it, was 7 feet underwater last year, 1 year ago today. This is a picture taken before the flood, but the town looks pretty much the same today. But last year, after the flood, in November, and when this was where 42 people died on this holler right here. This is where it happened. And that gym is where they all came to. We were serving 1,000 people a day, 850 meals, 250 tetanus shots every day. We called it the Wayland Walmart. We filled it, all the supplies and things I'm sure a lot of you sent there were stored and distributed out of that place. But we restored that gym, and for the first time in 52 years last year, we played our first basketball game. And the gym was full an hour before and an hour after the game. And we had a throwback game, and the teams represented schools that are now defunct, and they wore old uniforms, and the cheerleaders said old yells. People didn't want to leave. It was the first happy thing they'd seen that year. But last night, I was in the regional chamber event in Pikeville, and the mayor of this little town was given the Humanitarian of the Year award. And they're getting ready to build houses out of the flood. We're going to move these people to higher ground. We're going to quit flooding there. And the way to do that is water runs downhill, get above it. So anyway, this is the end of my talk. And I'm going to end with a video from that ball.
So that's
So I want to say, when I think about East and West, Kelly Coleman that played there played his basketball here on this end of the state. The money for the early, now we're starting to get traction, but the early monies for the restoration of this gymnasium came primarily from people from Glasgow, Bowling Green, Owensboro, and this end of the community. We have so many people and connections in Western Kentucky, and the more we cross-pollinate, the more commonalities we find, and so it's just a testament to the quality of the people, decent people in Kentucky. And so anyway, thank you for hearing me.